What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I've got another book review for you. And I'm going to be talking about The Neon Owl, Book 1, When Shit Hits the Van. And this is by Chad Lutzke. Now, this is his newest release. It just came out on February 28th. So I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis real quick and then give you my thoughts and everything on the book. Jinx is a record-collecting, middle-aged minimalist whose dreams of becoming a detective are waylaid by love and laziness. But when he inherits his late aunt's rundown motel, the Neon Owl, his passion for investigative work reignites while he searches for answers as to who keeps shitting in the bushes. His findings lead to a full-blown murder mystery where he and newfound friend Roddy, the elderly, one-legged handyman, set out to find the killer. A crime, noirish whodunit, rife with humor, grit, and ranch dressing. So as it says there in the synopsis, this is a crime, sort of noir, dark humor novel. It is a departure from what you are used to reading from Chad Lutzke. He usually writes dark fiction and horror. I recently listened to an interview with him on the Ink Heist podcast, where he was talking about this book. And he was sort of explaining it that, it was sort of out of his wheelhouse, writing this new genre. He sort of took inspirations from Joe R. Lansdale and likened it a little bit to the Hap and Leonard series by Lansdale. So if you are into that series or like Joe R. Lansdale, I think you will really enjoy this book. But even though it was a different genre that Chad isn't used to writing in, it still very much felt like a Chad Lutzke story. There's something sort of magical about his writing. He's able to capture your attention and draw you in really quickly. You're able to fall in love and sympathize with his characters basically right off the bat. He's always able to pack in a lot of story and a lot of heart and a lot of emotion into a very small page count. This one was one of his longer ones that I read. It was like 160 pages, but on average, about 100 pages or so, or about the length of his stories. He's able to cram in a lot of content in short amount of time compared to other people. 200 or 300 pages in, you start to get a feeling and caring for characters and other people's novels, and by that time you could have read 2 or 3 Chad Lutzke books. But with this one, we follow our main character, Jinx. We see the world through his eyes. He's sort of a slacker, for better use of a term. He comes to learn that he has inherited his aunt's motel after she's passed away. The motel is the Neon Owl. There's only one stipulation for him to getting it, and that is he cannot sell it. He has to keep the business in the family. So he packs up and drives down to Los Angeles. He moves to Los Angeles to the Neon Owl, and that is where our story really starts to take place. I can't remember if I said this already, but I'm going to backtrack some. The beginning of the book, like the first sentence or two, Chad does a great job of setting the tone for the story. It starts out sort of kind of funny in a dark way, but he sets the tone right off the bat that this is something different than what you're used to reading, and he does a great job throughout the book of sprinkling in these little bits of sort of dark comedy, which is something he doesn't really do, but he was really good at it. It was funny. I laughed out loud quite a few times throughout the book, but he lets you know right up front. He sets the tone with like the very first sentence to let you know what you're in for the rest of your ride throughout the book. But the Neon Owl, that's sort of the heart of the story here, where sort of everything takes place. And it was a motel at one time where we would get a rotating cast of characters checking in and out every day. But it has been converted to apartments where we have more permanent residents, which I thought was a great choice. It's a great cast of characters, and because they're more permanent residents, we get to spend more time with them. We get to learn about their day-to-day grind. We get to learn about some of their backstories, and some of them are quite quirky characters, which were fun, but none of them were too off the wall or too crazy. They all felt realistic, like real people, down-to-earth people that you could relate to. But sort of the stars of the show are Jinx and the handyman Roddy. They're quite different from each other. They have very different worldviews and perspectives, but they share a commonality with each other that they are able to bond over and sort of have this budding friendship with each other. It's sort of this buddy cop dynamic duo, if you will. They're sort of out of their element with this detective work. They don't really know what they're doing. They're really just doing what they've seen detectives do on TV and in the movies. They don't have any detective training, but it was fun to watch them sort of stumble and fumble through this sort of goofy investigation, trying to find out who was trying to find out who was crapping in the bushes in front of the hotel. And they're getting the clues and they have their suspects. And at one point, they both get new smartphones and they have no idea how to use them. They barely know how to turn them on or take pictures, which makes them sound incompetent. They're definitely not incompetent. They're not stupid, but they're definitely out of their element and out of their depth with this detective, investigative stuff. But I liked how it sort of started with this sort of silly and goofy investigation, this mystery about who's crapping in the bushes, but that evolved into something much darker, much more serious, and evolved into a murder investigation, which they're really out of their depth there. But it was fun to see them sort of grow as friends and as this duo, this detective duo, learning sort of the ropes and grasping the knowledge that they need to try and figure out what is going on. But anytime they're on the page together, they steal the show. The dialogue, not just between them two, but everybody. Chad did a great job with the dialogue in this book. It is smart and snappy, and it's quite humorous. The humor in here is pretty funny. But yeah, Roddy and Jinx, they steal the show. They play off of each other really well. In that Ink Heist interview, he said that Roddy was supposed to be sort of a one-scene character, but he liked him so much he brought him back for the rest of the story, which wasn't his plan. And I'm really glad he brought him back because the playing off of Jinx and Roddy, the way they play off each other, that's really well done. And I think that is sort of the star of this novel. The character work that Chad does, especially with Jinx and Roddy, is what stole the show for me. I really enjoyed their characters and their arc and what they learned and what they went through. That was my favorite experience of the book. Like I said, I don't want to say too much more about it. It is on the shorter side, but it was a fun sort of murder mystery, crime, whodunit, noir, dark humor type story. So if you're into that kind of thing, especially since Chad said it's sort of like Joe R. Lansdale. If you like his writing, I really think you should check this out. It's different from what Lutzke's done in the past, but it's still, it's a great read. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. This is book 1, as he titled it. So I'm really looking forward to more books in this series, more adventures with Jinx and Roddy. Like I said, they stole the show. They're super funny and they play off each other really well. They were the best part of the story for me, and I really want to see more of their exploits, and if they grow as detectives, if they get better at their detective work, or if they'll still kind of stay the same, fumbling idiots, if you will, just sort of stumbling upon their conclusions. But that's all I have to say about it. Again, this has been The Neon Owl, Book 1, When Shit Hits the Van by Chad Lutzke. I highly recommend it. It was a great read. I gave it 4 stars. But if you have read this, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it down in the comment section. If you liked it, didn't like it, if you've read some of his horror stuff, and if you've read this, how those two compare. But that's all I have for you guys today. So thanks for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.